All right, let's get into this. We're diving into one of the most frustrating paradoxes in history and, well, in human nature, really.
Absolutely. It's a constant friction point.
Yeah, how can a decision that is totally right in principle, perfectly by the book,
Standard compliant.
right, how can that lead to just, I mean, absolutely devastating results for millions of people? Why does being morally disciplined sometimes become this act of violence?
It's a huge question. And our deep dive today looks at just a tragic, spectacular example from the 20th century, Britain's decision to return to the gold standard after World War I.
So our mission here is to use the sources you've shared to really understand what happens when you prioritize a financial symbol, this image of national honor over the actual lives of the people.
It's a study in the brutality of high principles, you could say.
And that leads to the big question for you, the listener, to keep in mind as we talk. If a currency is strong, but unemployment is so high that the citizens are weak, what does that strong currency even mean?
Was this 1925 decision really about honor? Or was it, just fear of being seen as weak on the world stage?
To really get the weight of this, we have to start by setting the scene. Post-WWI Britain, it was, a tale of two Englands, completely different realities.
That contrast is so vivid in the sources. If you were in London, especially in the city center, it felt vibrant.
Right, almost frantic.
Yeah, shops were opening, theaters were packed, the city was literally dancing. It was this determined effort to say, the war is over, prosperity is back.
But if you just traveled, 50 miles north or west?
Everything changed. It was
Yeah.
like stepping into profound darkness. The industrial Midlands, the North, this was the engine room of the British Empire, and it was collapsing.
A big industry is right. Cotton, coal.
Cotton, coal, shipbuilding. They were either stagnant or just grinding to a complete halt.
And the human cost of that.
It was immediate and terrifying. Unemployment shot above 10%. You had millions of people, the backbone of the working class, suddenly depending on charity. This wasn't just a dip, it was a structural failure.
And here's the part that is so hard to grasp, the financial irony of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Britain's problem wasn't financial indiscipline, which is what you'd normally expect. They weren't printing money like crazy.
Not at all. In fact, it was the opposite. They were suffering because they were overly disciplined. They were clinging to a ghost.
So what were they actually doing?
They were actively pursuing a policy of deflation. The government and the Bank of England, they deliberately raised interest rates to tighten the economy.
Oh, why? Why would you do that when things are already so bad?
To force the pound back to its correct pre-war value against gold, the standard they'd left during the war. They were strangling their own economy for the sake of what they saw as perfect financial health.
It just sounds backwards. Was there no one else doing it differently? A counterexample.
Oh, there was a huge one right across the channel, France.
Okay, so what was France doing?
France was seen as financially sick. They let their currency float, they devalued it. But, and this is the key, because their currency was cheaper, their goods were suddenly competitive again, their economy recovered strongly.
So France was flexible and their economy got healthy.
Exactly. And Britain was financially healthy on paper because they were chasing this old gold standard number, but their economy was just stuck, depressed.
The system looked perfect, but the people were suffering.
A journalist at the time summed it up perfectly. It's a piercing quote.
What did he say?
He said Britain was healthy in the books, but sick in life.
Wow. That disconnect. That's where the moral problem really starts, isn't it?
That's the heart of it.
Okay, so if the system was sick, who are the people making these calls? Who are the players behind this fateful decision in 1925?
Well, the first key figure is Winston Churchill. He'd just been made Chancellor of the Exchequer.
A towering figure, obviously, but what did he know about economics?
That's the thing. He openly admitted, often with a shrug, that he didn't know much about it at all. He was way outside his comfort zone.
So you have the brilliant politician who's basically lost up against the other key figure.
Montague Norman, the governor of the Bank of England. And for him, economics wasn't just policy. It was a religion.
How so?
He was secretive, disciplined, almost like a monk. To him, the gold standard wasn't just a tool, it was a moral vow. It was a symbol of British imperial honor. To abandon that old rate was, in his mind, a betrayal of the national character.
And it wasn't just him, was it? There was a lot of pressure from the outside.
Huge external pressure. American financial interests, J.P. Morgan, Benjamin Strong at the New York Fed, they were pushing Britain very, very hard to go back to gold immediately.
Why did they care so much?
Because the center of global finance was shifting to New York. They needed Britain, the old anchor, back on the system at the old rate to stabilize everything for them. They even offered hundreds of millions of dollars to help.
That sounds good on the surface, but I remember from the sources there was a catch. A big one.
A very cold, specific condition. The American money was only on the table if Montague Norman stayed on as governor.
Wow, so they weren't just offering help, they were dictating policy. They were backing the one man who guaranteed this rigid, painful approach.
It's an incredible power play.
How on earth did Churchill, of all people, accept that kind of intervention?
He was trapped. On one side, he felt national honor demanded they return to the old standard to prove Britain was still a great power. On the other, Wall Street was backing the one guy who would make it happen. Churchill felt that not going back would be an admission of weakness, and he could never, ever admit weakness.
But someone must have been shouting that this was a terrible idea.
Someone was, the great economist John Maynard Keynes. He issued this crystal-clear warning.
And what was his argument? It wasn't just a feeling, right? It was math.
It was pure math, and it was devastating. He said returning to gold now was premature because British prices were still about 10% higher than American prices.
Okay, explain that. Why does that 10% difference matter so much? What does that mean for a company trying to sell something?
It means every single British export coal ships, whatever, was automatically 10% more expensive than its American competitor, just because of the exchange rate.
So to make the gold standard work.
You'd have to crush your own prices by 10%, a brutal deflation. And Keynes warned that this would destroy exports and send unemployment through the roof.
It wasn't a guess, it was a forecast.
It was. But the political momentum for honor was too strong. April 28, 1925, Britain returns to the gold standard.
And at first it probably looked okay.
For a moment, yes, gold flowed back in. But the devastation Keynes predicted arrived almost immediately. The export industries were they were massacred.
And that led directly to
The 1926 general strike.
Yeah.
A massive nation-stopping upheaval. Not because of some abstract ideology, but because of the real human suffering caused directly by this one financial decision.
The decision that was right by the symbol caused all this pain. This is where we need to shift from the history to the underlying structure of this kind of thinking.
Exactly. This is where the source material gets so insightful. It identifies these three, let's call them governing rules, that seem to apply whenever a society makes this choice to protect the symbol at all costs.
The three laws of the symbol. Okay, let's unpack Rule 1.
Rule 1 is confusing the symbol with the reality. For the British establishment, gold wasn't just a metal, it was a symbol of order, honor, empire.
It was their identity.
It was. So when the value of the pound was threatened, they didn't react like their economy was in danger. They reacted like their entire self-worth was under attack.
So the goal wasn't saving the actual economy, it was saving the image of the economy, the image of being strong and imperial.
Yes, and they framed it in moral language. They didn't say, we're afraid of looking weak. They said, we must restore the integrity of the pound. The goal became protecting that image, no matter the cost to real people's jobs and lives.
That makes the second rule even more chilling. Rule 2. When systemic morality trumps human morality.
This is the absolute core of it. Montague Norman genuinely saw the old exchange rate as a moral commitment.
Right.
But that's morality applied to a number on a ledger.
Right, an abstract standard.
And when upholding that standard demands that hundreds of thousands of people lose their jobs, that principle transforms into something else.
The source calls it a heartless morality, a sophisticated kind of violence.
It really is. It's violence disguised as principle. It's where the rules become more sacred than the lives they're meant to serve. If your moral commitment requires mass suffering, you are almost certainly applying morality to the wrong thing.
And that leads to the final rule, Rule 3, which is about why this kind of thinking is so seductive.
Rule 3. Choosing chains over chaos. The gold standard was so appealing because it seemed automatic. It was politically immune. It was this comforting delusion that if we just chain ourselves to this hard, unchanging law, the weight of gold will be safe.
Safe from having to make messy, difficult choices.
Precisely. It's choosing the comfort of a dead certainty over the hard work of adapting to a living, changing world. In this light, the gold standard wasn't strength. It was systematized fear. It was intellectual laziness. Choosing an old answer because you're too scared to live with new questions.
That framework it's incredibly powerful for looking at our own lives. We might not have a gold standard, but we all have our own gold, don't we?
We absolutely do. An old belief, an old image of ourselves, a rule we cling to because it makes us feel principled.
And that's the power of this history. It's a mirror.
It forces you to ask if your standards are serving you or if you're just serving them.
So let's make this personal. Lesson 1. Don't equate right standard with right living. I mean, some decisions look perfect on paper. They tick all the boxes,
Yeah.
but they just shrink your life.
Right, you might be following a perfect career path, but it's making you or your organization struggle to breathe. So when you face a big decision, you have to ask that question from the history. Does it make my life broader or narrower?
If the perfect choice is suffocating you, maybe the standard is wrong.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the next lesson, the danger we saw with Montague Norman. Lesson 2. Don't call fear morality.
Oh, this is a big one. How often do we say we're acting on principle when really we're just afraid?
Afraid of judgment, of losing face, of looking weak.
We dress up our fear in the language of values. I can't pivot the business, it would be erratic. I can't leave this relationship, I'm not a quitter. You're confusing fear with morality.
It demands a really brutal honesty with yourself, doesn't it? Are you protecting a real value, or are you just protecting an image, the symbol or the reality?
And finally, that brings us to the system itself. Lesson 3. Any system that stops listening to life becomes a prison.
And that can be a company, a family, even just the rigid rules you set for yourself.
Yes, when the rules become more important than the people, even if those people are just parts of your own messy self, you start to get resistance.
An internal strike, like the general strike of 1926.
That's the signal. The system has stopped serving life and started demanding sacrifice. You have to keep asking, does this system still serve life? Or has life started to serve the system?
The ultimate tragedy here, as the sources show so clearly, it isn't making a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes.
Mistakes are how you grow.
The real tragedy is when the mistake is treated like a sacred truth, just because it sounds moral.
It takes so much courage to look at a standard you've held for years or an image you've built for decades and say, you know what? This is failing.
So the message to take with you from this deep dive is, don't turn a symbol into a master. Make life real, messy, human life your compass, not the ledger.
The final test for any decision, big or small, is incredibly simple. If that decision, no matter how standard compliant it looks, causes you or other people to lose dignity, to lose hope, then you have to reconsider it with one question.
Is this still the path of life?